Today, the conversation is all about consent, peer pressure, and parental guidance. Season 3, Episode 2. Welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Kylie, the long-standing struggle that is pushing kids to the edge, according to the promo of Parental Guidance Season 3. Looking at peer pressure. Yesterday, we talked about what was going on here. We've got Amy and Mark, our active parents. We've got Nathan and Joanne, our traditional parents. Our Protect parents, Courtney and John, and our upfront parents, Mark and Tammy. I want to set the scene for today's conversation. The challenge was this: have parents been having consent conversations with their kids? Do they know how to have the consent conversation? Let's have a listen to what the expert had to say about it.
For this one, we've brought in an extra expert to help review how you went. Joining us in the Parent Lounge is consent educator Dan Principe. Perhaps we could just start by explaining the work that you do and why consent is so important.
I work with young people, young men predominantly across Australia, helping them make sense of the messages that they get about consent, respect and sex.
Dan, how big is the problem?
When it comes to young people, and something that keeps me up at night, is that 15 to 19-year-old girls are the biggest victims of sexual assault in our nation. And the flip side of that very unfortunate coin is that 15 to 19-year-old boys are the biggest perpetrators of sexual violence in our nation. Now, I do this work because that's not who I believe young boys are. I don't believe they're wired that way. Something's clearly gone wrong in how they understand relationships, sex, power, consent. And it's our job to help prevent that and help them actually know what is a healthy relationship.
Before we play anything more from the episode, I just have to highlight this. For any school teachers, any school principals, anybody who is listening who is looking for someone to talk at school about masculinity and helping boys, I do not know anyone I can recommend more than Dan Principe. He is one of my favorite people to talk to about this topic. He's so wise. He's so articulate. I just love listening to him. I wish we could have just played the entire episode as the conversation that Dan had in that room, because he sat there for about an hour and everybody listened with rapt attention to everything he had to say.
I would have loved to have been in that room.
So good.
Just the small snippets that we got of him on the show were so punchy.
Totally. Let's have a listen to what happened with the Protect parents.
Our challenge is to talk to you guys about consent. You could get consent to touch Dad.
Did you ask him for consent just
I
then?
didn't, but I married him. It's fine. Later on, you might have a girlfriend and you might want to kiss her, and then you would have to ask for consent to do that. You would have to make sure she's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
With so many domestic violence cases, I feel like the responsibility as a parent of 2 boys is to raise the boys to be respectful towards not only women, but everybody.
If you've kissed someone before, does that mean you've agreed to kiss them every time one of you feels like it?
No.
Why?
It's just permission. Like, for example, can I have your consent to film you?
Yeah, that's a way of asking.
That's
yeah.
a big one in this house, isn't it?
Yeah, that you do not apply.
Do your kids like being on social media?
I knew you'd do that. Yes, they do. They do. We check with them often. I check weekly, actually. Do you still like being on my TikTok? Do you want to do my TikTok?
Yeah, but maybe they're just trying to say yes because you're their mum. They don't want to let you down, but in that video, I didn't feel like he really wanted to.
This was actually quite interesting to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, having a podcast about parenting and family life.
Bit of a sore point.
We
Bit of
actually...
a sensitive topic.
We talk about our kids on the podcast all the time.
Yeah, we do. It's called sharenting.
I was about to say, it's called sharenting. But I do believe there's a really fine line between sharing our children's lives and getting their consent around it. I know in the early days when they were quite young, we were obviously very free with the conversations that we shared. We named them. You could say named and shamed.
Yeah.
But as they've gotten older and they have their own social media presence, we've become a lot more guarded about what we share, how we share it. And for the most part, we're often very delicate about not naming them.
We're pretty careful about what we disclose. And if we do disclose stuff, we always ask permission, right? Hey, today on the podcast, guys, we want to record a conversation about that thing that happened. Are you cool with us sharing that?
And they'll always listen to the cut at the other end.
Totally.
And
yes, they do love it.
One of the tricky conversations we had recently on the podcast, the daughter involved, she got in the car and she went straight to find it.
Yeah. What did you say? You told me you were going to say it. Did you do the right thing by me?
And I was sitting there with bated breath the whole time, and she couldn't help it. There was just this massive grin on her face. And at the end, I said, "Did we do okay? Did we keep your identity sufficiently blurred?" And she said, "Yeah, I guess."
Yeah, I guess. So Nick and Sophia are our positivity parents. We haven't really seen or heard much from them. Sophia is in the, I guess, what is it, the fluorescent green, lime green? I don't know what colour it is, but
that's a pretty good
the green dress.
Description.
They have a massive social media following as well. So it's quite interesting to see the dynamic playing out here. Really important conversation, and something that research shows is a concern for children. We do need to be mindful of that, and that is part of the consent conversation. I'm really glad that they said and did what they did around that. Let's have a look at what happened with the traditional parents. This was a moment.
So, what do you think consent is?
Consent's like asking permission to do something with the other person. It's just manners, yeah.
As traditional parents, we definitely try to protect them from adult themes as much as possible. We're not intentionally trying to broach sex at this age.
When you're kissing someone, it's important to check in before doing something else with them.
What the heck?
I may have a few concerns about the topics. We'll just have to take it as it comes.
She doesn't want to talk about the sex.
I don't like talking about the sex. Actually, I don't really care, but maybe not with you there too. And like, well, I don't know. It's a bit weird. Love you.
That's how they came to be.
Well, yeah, but you know, chatting about the kids.
If you kiss someone and they want to do that,
Go further.
Say they sit on a bed, you can just like...
Emma, stop it! No, she said, let her speak.
I go, "Why are you sitting on a bed?" And then they go, "Oh, I want to do this." And then they go, "Nah, man." And they walk and call Dad.
Definitely call your dad. I like that. Definitely call Dad.
Yeah.
Because Dad's got a shotgun and a shovel.
Whoa. How old are your daughters again?
12 and 14.
Yeah, I think that maybe start to have some type of conversation around consent and sex, because it would be around them just so they don't feel so awkward.
It was awkward, yeah, not going to lie. I don't really think anyone's 100% comfortable having a full-blown chat about sex or their sex life with their children.
Oh, well, you're thinking what I'm thinking. Okay, we need to take a break. After the break, though, there is a lot to cover about what just happened. All right, Kylie, you and I, we have 6 daughters. We have had many conversations with our children about consent. They are ongoing. I am an ambassador for the federal government's Consent Can't Wait campaign. Can I just, I really love all the families on the show, and I want to honour and respect them and really celebrate their willingness to get on a national TV show and put their parenting front and centre in the spotlight. I do need to just pick on Nathan for a moment. In 2025, I believe that we have got to get past this "I've got a gun and a shovel" mentality about our daughters dating. It's something that really belongs last century or even the century before. What we've got to do instead is empower our children to look forward to what is good about dating and give them the resources and the tools that they need to navigate what can sometimes be quite tricky and can be dangerous. Some things can cast a long shadow into the rest of their lives. But if we give them those tools, then they can navigate these situations positively and have really great experiences. And I think we want to be celebrating the positive rather than coming out with guns and shovels. Just
I don't
saying.
think
Sorry,
that Nathan and Joanne are alone in this, though.
Oh, no, not at all.
And what I have seen too many times is parents unwilling to have these what they consider as uncomfortable discussions and conversations with their children because it feels ugh.
Yeah. And let's be really clear. I know some people were sort of shrugging at them and going, come on, like, let's be real. Your children are going to whatever. Everyone knows their kids. And when I look at Nathan and Joanne and their family and their kids, my take on this is that in that family, they can probably push these conversations out a little bit longer than many other families because of the way they've protected their kids and made their family safe.
I don't know. I'm thinking about how their youngest daughter responded to the AI bot in the first episode.
Yeah.
And she is a curious kid.
I'm dating someone.
Why would you be dating someone?
You're really gonna hate what I have to say next.
What's going on?
Okay, the person I'm dating is a girl.
And the challenge we have when we don't empower our children with the adequate information to curb their curiosity, if we're not giving it to them, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and my other concern is if your kids are at school, they are going to be exposed to stuff. Now, again, I would anticipate, based on what I'm seeing in this family, that these are the kinds of girls who'll say, oh, that's not for me, and I'll just walk away. Wonderful. But they will still be exposed, and the conversations do need to be had. So while I'm saying every family is different and some families you can probably push it back a bit, I'm not saying you can avoid it. And certainly with girls 12 and 14, these are conversations that need to happen. So what I'd like to do for the rest of this episode, with maybe just one more clip from Dan Principe a little bit later, is I want to talk about how we recommend managing these conversations, the best approach, the questions that you need to be prepared for, how specific you need to be, and why being open and honest is best. I want to start, though, with the question, what's the right age to begin having these conversations? You know what my favorite answer is to this question.
Before 2.
Have every important conversation that you need to have, every tricky discussion before the age of 2.
You know, it sounds so stupid. Honestly, it sounds really stupid. But I remember when I first found out that I was pregnant. And
I didn't know that was coming, but go ahead. Yep. Sorry, I mean, I knew that. Hang on. I need to rethink what I was saying. I mean, I didn't know that you were going to talk about that. I definitely knew that you were going to find out that you were pregnant. I was heavily involved in that. Let's move on.
And I remember having conversations with my belly.
Right.
In anticipation of this beautiful miracle child that was going to come into our lives.
Yeah.
And you know, those late night feeds where I would talk to her and share my hopes and dreams for her and all of those kinds of things. And it was just such a natural thing for me to do, as I wanted to fill her heart, her mind, her soul with all the goodness that I could. And so while you kind of say it tongue in cheek, I actually think there's so much power in us having these really tricky conversations with them. And it's like practice, right? We're practicing with someone who can't talk back.
Pretty much. And it also makes you more comfortable having the conversations. And this whole idea of early and often. I've been repeating it like a mantra for years here on this podcast. These conversations are not one-offs. It's not one and done. It's not... well, we've had the consent conversation, or we've had the procreation conversation, we've had the drugs conversation. That's not how it works. That's why over the last few weeks, we've been emphasizing the new shift we've made in our family. I think we've made it way too late. We needed to do this a decade ago or more. But every Sunday now, we have a 15 to 20 minute talk that often goes for 45 to 60 minutes because the kids are so talkative, about tricky topics, about sometimes big things and sometimes little things, about emotions or about intimacy or about consent or about what to do when a boy is putting pressure on you or sending you messages that you don't want.
Or about hope.
Yeah. What to look forward to. We had a conversation recently just about the principles of well-being. We've had conversations with the kids about screens, but having these conversations regularly in both formal and informal ways. So our Sunday morning conversations, they're set in stone. The kids know it's happening. It's an appointment. It's locked and loaded. But there's also all those informal ones, like the day that one of our kids climbed into the car after school and looked at me and said, "Dad, can we talk about STIs?" And it's like, we need to have this conversation. If you're asking me, I'd rather you talk to me about it than talk to Google about it or talk to YouTube about it. We need to talk about this together. And so what I mean when I say have all of these conversations before the age of 2 is get used to having the discussions and open your mouth and talk about it, even if you're uncomfortable, because the kids are curious, even if they say, I don't want to talk about it.
What I've been really grateful for is we have had numerous conversations with our girls where they've come home and shared challenges that their friends are experiencing, and their friends don't feel comfortable going to their parents.
There's one that I have not told you about that one of our kids told us. Oh, you do know? Really?
Yeah.
So I haven't told you about it, but you know. So a little while ago, one of our kids came to me and said, I haven't told Mum, and I don't think Mum should know, but one of my friends, age 15, thinks that she's having a baby. She thinks she's pregnant, and she can't talk to her parents about it. What do I do?
Yeah.
And so having the consequence of not having these conversations, not having the trust in the relationship, can be that your children can find themselves in some very challenging circumstances and not know where to go for help.
And then
I can't believe you knew that.
The biggest challenge around that is that they're receiving advice from other 15-year-olds.
Right.
Who don't have the maturity or the understanding of the implications of decisions made without someone with greater foresight and experience and unconditional love for their child.
I want to make light of what's just happened, even though what we're talking about is a very serious thing. I can't believe that I've decided to tell you that I know about this thing on a podcast all this time after finding out, having kept it from you for so long, only to find out that you know about it and you didn't tell me about it. Maybe we need to work on our communication a bit more as well. Fundamentally, these conversations need to be simple, they need to be clear, they need to be direct. Kids just want us to be straight shooters. Nothing should be misconstrued. Be open and honest. I'm a really big fan of the 3 E's. Explore, explain, empower.
It never ceases to amaze me. We're looking for a complicated answer.
And it doesn't need to be.
It actually doesn't need to be. And these 3 E's are so powerful. Every conversation we have with our kids ultimately comes back to,
where are you up to? Here's what matters to us. How are we going to fix this?
Yeah.
Yep. Explore, explain, empower. Let's give Dan Principe the last word.
I want to humanise that, it can be uncomfortable. I would just say that one of the things that I think is just a general good rule for everybody is we need to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. Because I wouldn't want any young person feeling like their desires or their curiosity is shameful.
How good is that? All right, we need to wrap it up there. We keep on going over time. This is such a fun conversation. I mean, I just love what Parental Guidance offers parents as a resource. Yes, I know that it's reality TV entertainment, but it is such a valuable resource. It's such a privilege to be on the show. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on sending explicit text messages, sexting, sending nudes, whatever else you would like to talk about it as. It is happening. We may prefer to think that it isn't happening, but tomorrow we're going to have the uncomfortable conversation about kids sharing naked pictures online. We really appreciate Justin Roulon from Bridge Media. He's the producer of the podcast. Craig Bruce is our executive producer, and Mim Hammonds provides research and admin support. More information and more resources about making your family happier are available at happyfamilies.com.au. And if you'd like to catch up on Parental Guidance Seasons 1, 2 and 3, you can stream them now at 9 now. Episode 3 is back next Monday night.